This is quite possibly the best podcast intro ever.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Mythic Picnic Podcast. My name is Alessio and today's guest is none other than Charlie Cooper. Charlie's been a good friend of mine for a long time. He's the first friend I met when I moved to Shanghai a long time ago. He's a writer, filmmaker, documentary filmmaker. In this episode, we will talk about his life in Shanghai, his experience working on Mamahuhu, living through the lockdown in Shanghai, and plans for the future. So forgive my ums and ahs. As I watch back on this, I kind of noticed that I need to improve my conversational flow. I'm doing it already here. And kinda like a lot of those words I like to use. But yeah, also we just finished wrapping a test shoot for a short film, which I'm really excited to talk more about. It's going to be a lo-fi sci-fi / romantic comedy. We have such a great cast involved. Just the other day, we filmed a few test scenes just to see how everyone worked together and just to see if our concept was coming across all right. And also to prove that the concept itself works. So when it comes time to pitching, we have more than just the material on paper. But anyway, let's jump on over to Shanghai and catch up with Charlie. Enjoy.
The one that I like the most with you and it was quite actually fun to film was the influencer one.
Oh, really? You like that one?
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought that was quite a lot of fun, and it was playing to like both you and Matt's strengths.
Yeah.
I thought it was a lot of fun, and
Yeah, a lot of the sketches I write are just kind of like making fun of things or trying to like process why there's so many weird shit. Like how does it relate, and try to make it like a universal theme that isn't just about China. It's like kind of any expat or any living anywhere, any sort of cultural difference, I guess. Making it universal, so even if you don't give a shit about China, which right now is not a lot of people, and then also making it interesting, like visually good and like a cut above everything else. So that one is mostly just like influencers who make really low effort content, travel vloggers and stuff, where they're not really experiencing anything. They're just kind of doing the Cliff Notes version of eating this food and everything is perfect. There's no problem.
Yeah,
it's all amazing.
that's like especially on like short stuff like TikTok and YouTube Shorts. It's the same expression with every food thing.
Yeah,
People try. It's just like,
it's like they're coming after they eat one.
everything is like not that good.
Oh, and it's like they're selling a lifestyle basically.
Yeah.
And I just find it really annoying, honestly. So just making fun of that, but then also making fun of myself, and like a lot of the sketches I write, I try to like add nuance and it overcomplicates it, and that's what that vlogger did, basically.
And that's that character's doing. He's trying to like he's delving into it while Matt's like all about the hyperbole
and what works, or what I respect anyway, is probably a mix between the two. Like you need to be entertaining. You do need to give people a little bit of a aspirational hope to copy, I guess. But a lot of people do want depth, I feel like, and I think Mamahuhu did a good job of presenting that in a fun way.
Did you remember, before we move on, do you remember everything from that day, from that shoot? I remember we were outside Jing'an Temple filming the intros.
Oh, yeah.
Matt's just wildly actually, they're in the video, Matt's wildly waving about, like, hey guys, I'm at Jing'an Temple. And then there was just like these two fans were like, oh my God, Mama.
Yeah.
That's like, shot.
That was for me, it was just like, I started writing more sketches where I could force myself to be into the sketch, because I was getting annoyed of Matt getting recognized all the time and Jorge getting recognized. And then he got recognized in the middle of the shoot, and then that energized him like a little, like he just started running everywhere. Like
I think by that time, Matt's just like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There was a time actually, I think me and Matt were filming something by ourselves, and we were getting into like a brother fight kind of argument.
Yeah.
Like stressed, tired, and then like all these like young international students walked around the corner like, oh my God, Mamahuhu. And we were just in the middle of like shouting at each other like, hey, how you doing?
Are you guys doing one of your famous bits?
But we should talk about how we met, because I actually can't. I'm sure the internet is involved.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly like where.
The first thing we worked on was that rap video.
Yeah, but how did we get in touch because I was living in Yangzhou at the time.
Yeah, maybe I commented on your living, whatever that series you did before was, like, maybe. But I also think you posted about like, hey, I want help. I need a DP to help shoot this video.
Mhm.
And I remember I watched your old travel. This is like, again, travel vlogs. I wanted to do that, but I was just too much of a pussy to do it. So I
was barely doing it though.
You were though. You were doing it. You were showing life in China, but you weren't doing it in this like fake way. You weren't doing it in a propaganda way, and you weren't doing it in a just like hide everything way. You're showing your real life, and I thought it was funny.
Well, I came to China on a basically want to not go home, and I got a job in Yangzhou, so I was like, okay, I'll go there. So I came into China with like zero knowledge.
Yeah, I was saying,
and just I was filming stuff with my phone or with my GH1 at the time, and didn't really know what I was doing with it. So it was all just us drunk, cut to music, and then I started putting it online. It was called Living as a Lawai.
Living as a Lawai, yeah.
And then I think I quickly grew out of it.
I was writing a series at the exact same time called Living Like a Local.
Right.
And I saw your Living as a Lawai. I was like, someone stole my fucking idea.
But yeah, so it's some forum or somewhere I asked. Maybe it was Reddit.
Maybe.
And I remember arriving around about IMP Mall area.
Yeah.
Met you.
Love at first sight.
Yeah. It was, and we headed off and we went to film at Geisha.
Oh yeah.
For those listening, he just put his hand on my leg. For the listeners, he just assaulted me. We filmed at a bar called Geisha, which no longer exists, and I got that connection through someone in Glasgow.
Oh yeah.
That knew someone there. We went from that, and then not long after, I moved to Shanghai.
Yeah. And
what were you doing at the time?
I was doing like travel writing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for C Trip, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to get more into video stuff because I was filming like martial arts movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do more comedy. Like all my friends at the time just were doing martial arts movies, and I just didn't give a shit about martial arts movies.
Was that like a wave at the time, you think?
It's just like that's who you fall in with.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like I like martial arts movies now, and I can appreciate it. I made a short horror film recently that has some martial arts in it, but I wanted to do comedy. I wanted to do like cultural stuff and try to like present that to the world. And I didn't like vlogs, and I didn't like a lot of the myriad of ways that you can do it. You can write a blog, I guess, but I think sketch comedy is the best way to present really complex topics. It takes a lot of work, but I think it's the best way, honestly.
I think that's something that you can say that describes you as well. As like you're a very good planner, and you put a lot of thought into it. And you do have like it seems like you're getting over it, but there's a lot of kind of like not like wanted to get perfection before doing it, which kind of slows you down.
I'm kind of getting over it. It's a lot. Because like that's not to get too deep, but a lot of people think perfectionism is like a virtuous trait, but it's not. It's a poison. It's bad. It will kill you slowly.
Well, for me, this always feels like the finishing makes the next one that step closer.
Oh, I 100% agree, and I'm very much trying to take that in stride currently. But I think. Yeah, I had always had like a lot of ideas of what to do, and I think we made a good balance for, you want to do things quickly and I wanted to do them good.
It wouldn't necessarily wasn't quickly, it's just that's the time.
Oh no, you just had you learned really quickly, and you just became professional fast, and you wanted the production value, but you also wanted to keep locations limited and keep the actors limited, even though we had some sketches where we had a shit ton of people.
One thing I noticed looking back at sketches I didn't really notice at the time, but the sound is worse than I thought it was at the time.
Really?
Yeah. It was just, the sound's pretty bad.
Some of them, yeah.
But just before, so between Living as a Lawai, we both met Zach.
Yeah,
Donnie does as well. I remember that night out. It was like free beer.
Oh yeah.
What was the place called?
That's a classic Lawai event.
A free beer event. But I think when Mamahuhu started forming, that's when...
Do you remember the first one I wrote?
Was it Black in China?
No, it was being overseas Asian.
So what do you remember from that one?
A lot of these concepts, I'm talking to my family. I'm talking to people who can't possibly understand what it's like living here. And it's more from my perspective of people looking at someone who is like ABC, or even someone looking at someone who's like Cambodian Thai, and then expecting them to be fluent in Mandarin and just generally being racist and assuming they're Chinese. I really like that sketch. I think it has a lot of like real life things that everyone vaguely Chinese looking deals with when they come here.
Yeah, a lot of people identified with that for sure.
Yeah, it's just like the idea that you are a bad Chinese person if you don't have X qualities of what a mainland person thinks a Chinese person. I actually think that's changing a lot lately, the more globalized world, but
Yeah.
it was a big thing at the time.
Yeah.
China only opened up in the 90s, so.
You write a lot of sketches from Mamahuhu, what it's like living here. What is it like living here in the beginning? And yeah.
In the beginning, like, I mean, I don't know, I was a kid, so.
What brought you here?
Get away from the U.S., honestly. Boredom, excitement, live a wildly different life.
Was this your first stop, like, from the States?
Yeah, it was. I went to, like, random small town in Zhejiang, and then, like, my first job was doing performance. Like, I did a wine competition performance thing on Nanjing Road where I did couples yoga or something like that. Like, I wasn't a yoga person. I was just a flexible dude. And that was a job. And I was just like, whatever. So I have these photos of me like putting my legs behind my head and like on the Nanjing Road with like 1,000 people watching me. And it's just like, well, you won the competition. Here's like 2,000 RMB for winning. And yeah, that was my first job.
How long did that last?
Like, it was like a 2-month thing.
Wow.
It was very much illegal, I'm sure.
Is that what you took to come here?
No, I just got it randomly. It was like the time where like the more respectable of white-face jobs. Selling your body in the most...
How would you describe white-face jobs?
White-face jobs are jobs that you literally only get because of how you look rather than any of your skills, which is this joke that I put into being black in China. I wrote a stage play at the time, and it was just about how expats become who they are. Like, what's their journey? Like, the douchebag expat who's really selfish, how did he become that way? Did he come here, like, and he was like that? Usually not. Something changed them to become that way. So I wrote this idea just talking about how, imagine you have like an Oxford educated guy who just happens to be black. And then you have an Asian guy who has just like the most qualified credentials to do this job. And then this random white guy comes in. At the time, I mean, it's not like that as much anymore, but at the time, you would have people who would just get these jobs who were not qualified. It was just because parents would not accept, certain races, basically.
Yeah, partly that would.
It's on the.
It was like they didn't speak English, so the way for them to tell is like how they look.
Yes, yeah. It's just about the classic comedy of cultural hegemony. It's like homogenous culture and what comes out of that concept, basically.
So what did you think of? So you were straight into Shanghai.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what did you think of Shanghai when you first arrived and the first few years? Would you think it was the best era?
Let's start
with like, what do you think when you first arrived?
The best era. When I first arrived, honestly, everything was new to me. I basically grew up in China. Like, I was a child, basically, like 21 years old, and I didn't have no frame of reference. I moved around the U.S. quite a bit, but beyond that, I didn't have anything else to compare it to. So, to me, what is normal in China was normal. Like, so when I go to other places, like, I'm comparing it to Shanghai and the convenience of this city. My initial impressions were just like, wow, there's a lot of Chinese people. As sad as that is, that was my first impression. Like, just the sheer density of everything and how dynamic everything is, I guess. There's always something new, always something happening. There's always an opportunity, and you just needed to take it. I found that I was doing jobs that I was not qualified to do. And it's not because I couldn't do them. It's just like I didn't have the experience, but I believed I could do it. So I, with that fake it till you make it type thing, and like
which is to the extreme here.
It's to the extreme. Like you're managing people at 24 years old.
It's to the extreme that like, fake it till you make it. This guy's like teaching English, but he's also a serial killer. By the FBI, which is like a true story.
Hey, just because you murder people doesn't mean you can't teach English.
You can't.
Don't gatekeep that.
But even just before we filmed here, it's like, we are in like a lane house, and it's just people living on top of people, and there's a garden just behind the camera. This guy just popped his head out of nowhere and just started singing songs.
That's classic.
And then he disappeared again.
Yeah, at the time, honestly, it's just there was so much changing constantly, and just business-wise, culturally, like there's way more people at the time. I think way more expats, way more variety. Definitely like a bigger mix between like what you would call high-quality expats and low-quality expats.
What is a high-quality expat to you?
One day, I hope to become one, and I'll
find out.
I'll find out. I'll find out one day.
Pretty great.
It seems really nice.
But that's the great thing about Expat Bubbles is like everyone kind of mingles, so you get to see all these scenes.
Yeah,
and like insight to other like industries and lives that you wouldn't normally get at home.
That's a great point because like Toronto is a culturally diverse place, and so is New York City. But a lot of times people live in very set areas. Like if you live in Sheep's Head Bay and you're hanging out with all the Russians, like here you can't really, other than like yes, there's Koreatown and there's Waigaoqiao, or not Waigaoqiao. There's a Jinqiao where like the expat package people live, and they definitely have their own bubbles. But for the most part, if you go out and you do things, you're going to run into people from anywhere in the world. And sometimes you're meeting someone for the first time from Botswana and you don't know anything. And you have to make sure to like listen and understand and just try to meet new people. Like I've met 4 Moldovans in my life. And
right.
Yeah.
Cool. That's pretty great.
Yeah. I wrote it in my diary. It's a big moment for me.
I think, yeah, for sure, like the people, some of the people that I know now, there's like no chance I would have like ran into them. I think Andy's like a big connector for that as well.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the comedians that have come through. And
yeah, you had a nice talent pool of comedians to exploit.
For Mamahuhu, for sure. Yeah, that's what I said. There was like the beginning of this kind of scene forming.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Kind of came and went. For the most part, but there was like strands happening at the same time. There was like Andy was starting stand-up comedy for the most part, and jumping between trying to keep clubs running to running his own club, and Zach was doing his thing with Donnie Does. We were making Mamahuhu. You guys were doing a podcast for a while.
Oh yeah, once you didn't have control over Mamahuhu for a little while, Jorge and I just did our own like Shanghai podcast, and then I was just like, I don't like podcasts that much. I want to do sketch comedy.
You guys had a really cool little setup though. You had like rented an apartment basically for podcasting, which is pretty sweet.
And then you saw our success and you got jealous. You got livid, and you poached us, and then we killed our dreams just for you.
I guess is what happened.
Yeah. I talk to my therapist about it daily.
So how's things been? This is the first time I've been back in 4 years.
Yeah.
We've seen each other previously in a depressingly cold and grey Scotland.
Yeah.
Scottish winter. But I like coming back. I was like really energized, excited. I still am. But there's that slow kind of thing creeping in where like a lot of the people are not here, but there's still a good amount of you still here, and
like quality expats, you mean?
Yeah, the high quality ones are gone.
Yeah, probably, honestly.
But also like when we went out last night, it just felt like it's all resumed. Like
yeah, I know what you mean. That's for sure.
That was really nice.
It's still there. It's coming back, honestly, but like definitely lockdown and COVID hit Shanghai very hard, and it's still recovering. Especially certain industries, like I make documentaries, and there's not a lot of media interest in things. So
that's something I noticed in the UK when I try to tell some of these stories or what it was like living here. You just meet a blank expression because there's little really known.
Yeah.
generally about life in China, or it's mainly just politics that people kind of pick up on, and even then it's like loosely kind of reference stuff, but
Yep.
the day-to-day stuff that people really don't really have any frame of reference, so the stories are wasted.
Yeah.
Which is such a
It
shame.
just requires so much foundational knowledge and experience just to understand like a little bit of it. And then when people hear about it, it's like such a complex concept that you just kind of brush like broad strokes over it because you don't have time to learn. So it's just a lot easier. People are lazy. It's just a lot easier to just assume this. This is why the YouTube space has become this pro-anti-China like line in the sand.
It's what gets
It's what gets clicks and views. Exactly. I was writing a concept for a video about why video games don't really have a lot of Chinese set like themes, basically, which that's changed recently. But the reason is that, one, most of the video games are coming from Japan and America. China only opened up in the 90s. So the idea of what China was still set in very much like old Chinatowns and in ancient history. And that's kind of what China pushes a lot too. So it's kind of difficult to understand China when people don't come here.
Do you want to touch on like what lockdown was like?
I mean, do you want me to cry on this podcast?
Yeah, I'm always kind of cautious about asking about because I heard it was pretty rough.
So for me, I can say that the first 2 weeks of lockdown, I was actually genuinely excited because I was stuck somewhere. My choices were taken away from me. And for me, that was very freeing because I was no longer just like stressing and being anxious about getting new clients, finding new things. I could only focus on finishing what I already had, which, as you know, is like usually too many projects, basically. So I wrote a short film while I was in there, and it became like autobiographical. It was just a story about a person slowly going crazy while they're stuck down and reminiscing about a past that they wish they could control, essentially. And I got really good footage of just to see Huaihai Road with empty, just absolutely empty. It's so quiet. And police on the corner, just making sure there's no one wandering about. I flew my drone out the window to like take shots of everything. It's very post-apocalyptic, similar to the sketch that you did about The Last Man in Shanghai. It looked exactly like that.
But every day.
So lockdown was just a time where you didn't realize just how much you needed to see people. And even like I had my wife with me, but you didn't have any time to yourself. And when you don't have that and you don't have any other socialization, it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you kind of you do go a little crazy. And then you add in that we didn't have food. We didn't have connection, basically. And it's hard. It was just very difficult, honestly.
Just for context, like when COVID happened, there was like a small lockdown, and then China closed the borders, and then for China, like
it was pretty good at the beginning for China.
It was a good place to be.
Yeah, it handled it the best probably, and then not so much.
Just the inevitable was delayed to a point that it was severe, and this is the way it was handled. It didn't.
Yeah, it just became a breaking point for a lot of people, and even like in my compound.
So it's 5 days.
Oh yeah, it started as 5 days, and we're like, this is nothing, no big deal. Cook some food, do some meal prepping.
Yeah,
and then the 5 days became 30 days roughly, and then 30 days became 60 days, and then 60 days became depends on how they feel, depends on a lot of other things, and it was just like the day that like people were just so bitter and jealous of like someone in my building was like walking their dog on this track. And there was no one around. They weren't hurting anyone. And someone was so jealous. They were so bitter that they just became like, they reported them and got them in trouble. And we saw that I had to watch this woman and her dog get taken away by a baoan who had just got deputized to have all this power. Struggles with food, struggles with coping, struggles with what access you did have was just through social media. So at the time, like, I think I filmed a few Zoom calls for this short film, and it was just about us complaining about the Disney people shooting these like happy videos of them in their costumes in their buildings and stuff. And it's like, on one hand, we understand we want people to be happy, but also we don't. Why are you so fucking happy? Why aren't you miserable like everyone else? And people, we would like gossip about who got steaks, which compounds got better food, and
So how was the food was like rationed to people? Or
Yeah, it was
you
rationed
could
based on
choose what you wanted.
It's based on like what blocks you lived on, and that person in charge of those blocks is the person, and depending on them, honestly. And they also depended on who your baoan was, and depending on if you could bribe them to sneak out and do things.
And there was some stories I've heard from people who like had a cool baoan and they could, because they were saying that the bawans are so like in China, most housing is in compounds and it has an exit and entry gate, one or two, which during lockdown you found out that's like it became very effective for controlling people coming and going.
Yeah, it's honestly, you couldn't do a lockdown like that in most places, but just the way that Shanghai set up.
Yeah.
I mean, I would normally say that it was handled well in the very, very beginning, but you have to consider, even if only 1% is not handled well, that's a lot of people who couldn't get medication, couldn't go to the hospital, couldn't deal with like mental issues, pregnant people who just like, there's so many like fringe cases or just normal cases in this case that just couldn't be handled because it's just impossible to handle that much.
Really, yeah.
No city can do that. No one is that efficient.
Yeah. I mean, for a city this size,
yeah,
and population.
I know people in Chongming Island, which is the island north of here, where it's more rural. They were literally breaking into supermarkets at night and doing these runs. So I have this cool footage of that I'll release, 10 years from now,
or in this podcast,
or maybe, yeah, just like people like breaking into a supermarket, like it's like literally like a zombie movie. They're breaking in not to steal like watches, but to spend their own money on food so they can bring back because they weren't allowed to go. Whew, comedy.
Well, actually, I enjoyed this part of the story. What was it like when it was over?
Oh,
Lockdown
yeah.
was over?
Like, have you seen La La Land, where people are getting out of their car and singing in the streets and stuff? I think it was like that.
Really?
Yeah. People were just so overwhelmed with emotion, and
This is like 3 months later?
yeah. So streets were empty. There's still no cars. So you would just have people just like as if they'd been in like a nuclear shelter, like in Fallout or something. And they're like, hey there, smooth skin. They were just like people raising their arms in the air going like,
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. And there was like bike barricades. I got some good photography then. And like I rollerbladed around and just like it was very freeing. And you had people going to every park. Bars were closed. They wouldn't let you do anything. So people were just going to parks and getting drunk. And I think people were having sex in public and like,
Wild.
yeah, it was real Sodom and Gomorrah situation.
I mean, the biggest downside with the COVID was that the Mamahuhu episode, Last Man in Shanghai, is just not impressive anymore.
It's not. No, it's like you need
like
to
obviously this was filmed during COVID.
you need to add extra stakes to it.
What do you think was from your perspective, what do you think was the goal of Mamahuhu? What do you think was the hopes that it led to?
For me, it's honestly, I guess it's kind of like trying to process what it's like to live here and make sense of cultural differences and do it in a way that isn't disrespectful, but also kind of lets people understand things from a point of view of comedy and let people connect over that and share that, because you can do an explainer video, and we did a couple like explainer videos about like the e-bike revolution and digital payments and stuff, but to talk about these really complex subjects in a way that's funny, but so people can kind of immerse themselves without actually being here. There's a lot of people who watch those bits and they kind of got the intent behind it, and then they came to China afterwards because of it.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of people that we would run into that just were like, oh, I love Mamahuhu so much, like I moved to China because of it. Like that's
really surreal.
Yeah, that's really surreal.
I mean, I heard that the American Embassy was using Mamahuhu as an instructional introductory video for like people coming to the country. Siebes Business School was using it to like, show people what it's like living here. I was very much enjoying life and all this stuff I was learning as we were making it was like the excitement behind making it was like also learning at the same time,
Mm.
and seeing that, I think for me there was that wish to like get it out to an even bigger audience.
Yeah.
And but I said it before, like it's very much that was film school.
Yeah.
For sure. Like that was I learned way more
Yeah.
doing
Same.
that than
I learned
studying.
not to make a sketch 15 minutes long if the joke is only 2 minutes long funny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If we could go back and do them all again, it'd be totally different.
They would be quite different.
Yeah, but that one
There's just so much to like talk about. It's hard to like limit your jokes. Like I think the best one I wrote was the every city's famous for beautiful women
Yeah,
concept, because I did so much travel documentary stuff, and every single time you would say, "Oh, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going to this city."
Chongqing menu.
Yeah, the first thing was just like they would say, "Wow, there's a lot of hotties there. It's
Yeah.
actually famous for it. That's how beautiful they are." And
It's the
just
spicy food.
it's like, how is every city?
What was some of the reasons? It's the spicy food.
Oh yeah,
It's
the
beautiful.
spicy food, and it's the weather, which the humid weather would moisten the skin and give them a younger look. And it was like this mix of weird TCM, like beauty. I love that sketch. I really think it's a good one.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, you know,
That's when we're getting tighter, I think.
yeah, yeah.
Because before we're like as long as we want. You know, pacing was like way off sometimes, but that was like a really tight sketch.
I think we just had so many elements in that. We had like the cultural beauty standards and just the bizarre ways that, you know, people kind of force beauty standards on women in China. We also had travel comedy. We also had just like really good acting. Like Angus was so good in that.
He is so good. He's not acted since, he was telling me.
Yeah. You know how Tarantino, like, he makes movies where, you know, Salma Hayek is like pouring
Stuff in her foot.
tequila down or just so he can put the foot in the mouth.
Yeah.
Like, I wrote that because I wanted to be Matt's gay lover, and it's always been my dream.
Yeah, you guys pulled it off. Very convincing.
We did. I tried my best to act.
In that sketch is Zhang Wu,
Yeah.
Xiao Zhang, who is a gaffer. Like that's how I met him. He's actually
Yeah, I still hire him for jobs.
he's a great lighting guy. He'll go like above and beyond. I've seen him like lifting power cables out of the way and things like that. And I can't remember how he actually. I don't like. He was in the Russian English teacher sketch.
Oh yeah,
I think it was the first one.
he was like a
playing
bow
some
on.
giant-
He had,
I
like,
can't
a suit
remember.
on or something like that. with
No, he was
that.
just hello, thank you.
Oh
Just-
yeah. The limit. That's his English essentially.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. What the decision was. It worked perfectly because he's hilarious.
He's just so naturally funny. So
Yeah.
people think that he's playing a character or like, but no, he's a gaffer. He's a professional in the industry, and he's just so naturally funny.
Yeah. But it's not far from himself.
No, it's not that far.
And people saw him. People in the scene, the Shanghai scene here, saw him in Mamahuhu and hired him for like a real film. They gave him a lot of lines, and it was just not working.
Not
I was
working?
like, no, he's a real person.
He's not acting.
Yeah, he's not
We've
acting.
actually never written a single line for him.
Yeah, he just shows up.
Just shows up, wanders in the background. The lights are good. He's like, all right, time to become a star.
So, present day, what are you doing now? What do you want to do?
Last year or 2 years ago, I don't even know. That's the other thing with the lockdown is like time makes no sense.
Yeah.
Made a short horror film with my friend. That went to some festivals and did well, but now I was like kind of stuck here at that time, so I didn't get to do it. I've been doing documentaries for Radii, where we talk about kind of youth culture, and my strategy was kind of just to talk about big issues like AI, the food delivery industry, living in urban areas versus rural areas, like complex things, but just kind of like break it down for an audience so that how does that relate to the youth culture in China?
Mm.
But that company has now moved to Hong Kong, so I'm just doing more freelance stuff. I still run my company. I want to do more I'm working on something right now. I can pitch it to the audience and they can tell me if they give a shit. I'm doing one about beer.
Mm.
It's not because I'm so passionate about beer. It's just, as I've traveled, I've noticed that every country's most popular beer is terrible. Every country has like, what is the most popular beer in the world?
Snow?
It is snow. I already told you this. This is not fair.
Yeah, I don't know if you told me that. It's
Oh,
not
I
fair.
did.
It's a fun fact.
It's a fun fact.
that you learn
It's a cute little fact.
after you've been here a couple of years.
Yeah. Snow is the most popular beer in the world, and snow is garbage.
Yeah.
Most countries' most popular beer is just not a very good beer. So I'm just exploring that. I'm trying to do it in a funny way, but just what is the reason? It's, again, like everything, it's complex. Cultural reasons, drinking laws, psychology, marketing,
For sure.
capitalism.
Well, you see, you want to do more comedy, but it sounds like you're really leaning into being a documentary filmmaker.
I don't think documentaries have to be overly serious. Like, if there was more comedy, there'd be more healing.
100%. A show that does well, or a movie that does well internationally, that's accessible, would only help things.
Yeah, just like how global, this isn't going away. The world's just going to become even more globalized. The globalists are going to win. So you're going to see more and more content like Mamahuhu, honestly. And you're going to need to be able to navigate that line really, really effectively. The hard part with doing stuff in China is that I think a lot of people don't give a shit anymore.
If people do come here, it's still pretty difficult to get around. Compare it to other East Asian countries and their tourism, their accessibility, their social media is like way more.
It's easier to get into Japan, harder to get a job there right now probably, but they have soft power. They have decades of soft power, and Korea now has decades of soft power. And China will get there, maybe, perhaps, maybe.
It'd be great to be a part of it somehow.
It would be. I mean, I think we did a good job. I would give you a pat on the back. I think you did a great job, honestly. Like, what else is there, really?
I still have the hope, and I still bring it up. Like this, there's people who want to see this.
I 100% agree. Yeah, absolutely.
An internationally stacked cast that, say you did get a distributor or a company interested, and they want to like stack they want to have it say on casting.
Yeah,
I think the route would be to like take up and comers from all different countries.
Yeah.
And that means you're like getting fan bases around the world as well. And then a platform like Netflix or Amazon that has like a global reach would be like the perfect place for it.
Honestly, I think that the appeal of The White Lotus is kind of a little bit of that.
Yeah.
It's different cultures and different interesting environments, and what are the cultural friction that happens.
And you're seeing, and like I'm seeing, it's a resort, so you're getting like a taste. Like you're not getting dumped in that culture.
Yeah.
Little taste of it at a time.
It's not Wong Kar-wai and
you're seeing it through a tourist basically. So
yeah,
it's a perfect vehicle for like introducing cultures.
Yep.
Hawaii, Italy, and now Thailand.
Thailand. I'm very interested in the Thailand one.
Yeah,
because there's some really
Mike
good
White
films.
is amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
There's good films set in Thailand, and there's going to be some interesting things happening. It's just like what countries and what cultures are always going to be present, like Chinese culture, Indian culture, American culture. Scottish culture is going to die out probably. Like I give it 20 years. So it's a sinking ship, my friend.
And on that note, Charlie Cooper, thank you very much. Where can people find you? I'll put your you
just go on Instagram for now, and then you can spam my YouTube video when it goes up, if you will allow me that.
Thanks for inviting me onto your riff.
No problem.